Let's get this episode of Locked On USC program started.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day, whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you are downloading your podcast. This show is always free, and the show will always appreciate your support. Look, we got a really special guest on the show today. He was almost a USC Trojan in his dreams. He instead headed to Cornell, became one of their finest. I'm really excited because I have one of the most positive guys out there joining the show today, JD Paquel, national college football analyst. He's with the On 3 Network, and he's also the host of the Hard Count podcast. And we're going to, like he says, we're going to chop it up and talk about everything USC, everything about college football, what we're going through. JD, thanks, man. Appreciate you being here.
Oh, man, it's a blast. It's always a blast to be able to talk some college football on a weekday, no less. I mean, in June, are you kidding me, man? I'm fired up. I'm fired up to be on with you, and glad to be on this platform with you, man.
Appreciate you being here. So some people might not know this. They watch, they listen to JD, and they hear him. They say, doesn't really sound like a SoCal guy, but he is. I don't know how long you've been hanging out there in Tennessee, but you got a little bit of that Nashville twang going on. So he played his high school ball at Orange Lutheran High School. That's in Southern California, Orange County. I believe Jake Olson was on your team, correct?
That's my guy. Yeah. So funny story. Jake was actually one of my best friends in high school, and then he was actually also in my wedding. So like me and Jake, man, we go back, and man, there is not a better human being out there. I know. Walking around a few Trojan games with him at different points in time, like, dude is a celebrity. Even before he got to USC, when he had his game day pieces out, like you could not go anywhere with him without getting stopped by a few people asking for pictures. But no, he's creme de la creme without a doubt.
And he's also a really smart dude. And we know he just passed away recently, but he had that dog with him for a reason. That was a chick magnet, and Jake knew what to do with that. So,
yeah, he knew what he was doing. He wasn't. There was no. He was not. He can't see, but he was not blind to any of the impact that dog had as it pertained to some of his benefits. He is very happily dating somebody right now, so I think he has exercised that to its fullest extent. But yeah, without a doubt, he knew what he was doing.
One of the greatest things I loved about Jake was his self-deprecating humor. He could just throw it at himself and just throw it out there, and that was just one of the great things I loved about that guy.
Dude, it is because like I think he does a phenomenal job of understanding. Like, there's a lot of people here who maybe haven't interacted with a person who's blind before, and he was just so quick-witted to like break the tension, break the ice, so approachable. And I mean, I think a lot of people know this too. He's a really gifted communicator too. Like, if he wanted to be in sports media professionally, like I have no doubts he would probably conquer that too. I mean, he's a better golfer than I think most people that I even know. Definitely better golfer than me. Whatever he puts his mind to, he's a pro at it. It feels like overnight.
Absolutely. Now, a couple other guys that went to USC from OLU. Maybe you crossed paths with them. Do you know Blake Ailes, Aaron Court?
So I know both those names. They were both legends before I got on campus at OLU. They were, I want to say maybe a couple of cycles ahead of me potentially, but definitely knew both of them. I mean, knew of both of them rather. Like they had some juice definitely. When you walk around the halls out there at OLU, those are some legends without a doubt.
I think Blake Ailes' best memory at USC, at least from this fan's perspective point of view, USC was at Notre Dame, and he gave the Notre Dame faithful the victory salute minus one finger.
Okay,
and it was caught on camera. It was beautiful.
There we go. Actually, I do kind of remember that now that you say that. That is kind of jogging my memory. Yeah, that's the rivalry, I guess. Huh? That's why we love it.
We're gonna have some fun on this show. So, all right, we're gonna get down to now. We're gonna start talking about USC. You said it the other day. USC took a gut punch, got rocked, kind of almost had to take a knee, regather itself. Here's the first hard question. Did Coach Riley wait a year too long? I mean, I remember that Tulane game. I'm up there in the press box. ESPN's got that 99% win probability meter up there on the corner of the TV. And then all of a sudden they lost that game and it just snowballed in 2023. did he wait a year too long?
I think in hindsight, the answer is yes, right? Because Caleb Williams, you had him for one more year. And I think depending on what this defense does its first year in the Big Ten, you'll probably live with that question of, well, what if we had a defense that was even, like serviceable? How many games could we win? Could we have been a team that competed for a Pac-12 championship in the last year of the conference? So in that sense, I think it's fair to look back and probably say, yeah, you waited a year too long. On the other hand, and this is me playing devil's advocate a little bit,
Sure.
the answer to this question is yes. I think you waited a year too long. I think if that is your guy that you believe in, you saw it through to the bitter end. Now, you saw it through to the bitter end at the expense of, again, I believe the potential of what you could have done with the Heisman Trophy winner. But they did go out through the portal. I was on this train at the end of, I guess, this time last year saying, like, hey, we're going to find out about Alex Grinch this year because the personnel from what it was from 2022 to 2023, I thought was substantially improved from a Bear Alexander. They also got some other defensive linemen through the portal, and Anthony Lucas. So I was optimistic in the sense that, okay, we're going to find out what the real issue here is. Is it the DC? Is it the scheme? Is it the personnel? And I think now we probably have our answer. And Lincoln Riley, to his credit, I mean, saw that all the way through. But I understand that if I'm a USC fan, I'm like, man, probably waited a year too long.
And, there's a little bit of fool's gold there, a little bit of there's some nuance behind this whole thing. I mean, they won 11 games. You can't forget that.
Yeah.
They were really close to winning that conference championship game until Caleb pulled up lame with the hamstring. So, and then let's not forget, one of Coach Riley's closest friends passed away during his first year at USC as well. And so you have that, you want to keep that inner circle around you close. So again, there's a lot going on. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but again, you have to there's a big picture stuff going on here. So, all right, moving forward. Speaking of last year, obviously a little bit of humility is probably the best thing for anybody. How much do you think Coach Riley grew from last year, from that season?
Yeah, I mean, I think we get a good gauge for growth based on how we respond to those adverse situations. And I think there's a lot of people that will look at the change on the defensive staff and say, okay, well, maybe his hand was forced. There's this thought of, well, he had to do that. That's what the administration told him to do. I don't know what's true or not true there, but I will say if he's in charge of hiring that defensive staff, like they swung big. Where we sit right now, I think they probably connected big and landing some guys with NFL pedigree and a guy who just flipped around the UCLA defense, not to use a bad word on this show, over the course of a very, very short period of time. And so I think we will see how much the defense progresses and how much they change philosophically at USC. I think that will tell us how much they really grew. Because, I mean, everybody's going to have adversity, right? Like, it doesn't matter what, profession you're in, what stage of life you're in. Adversity is inevitable. How you choose to respond, I think, dictates growth. And so far, I would say they've responded in a really exciting fashion with how they put together the staff.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Coach Riley said, I'm going to make defense my number one priority going forward, building this team. So you can't argue with his hiring on as far as the staff is concerned. The question now is, can he get the player personnel to believe in the vision and come do it before they actually see it? And I think that's where we're at right now, that fork in the road where we kind of have to wait and see. And then again, a follow-up as far as, trying to maybe do too much. Last year, they're coming off 11 wins, Heisman Trophy. And I think Coach Riley even alluded to it a little bit. Do you think maybe Caleb tried to do a little bit too much on his own last year? He said he wanted to have a better season statistically than he did it for his Heisman campaign, which is like, what?
Yeah, I think there's probably some of that baked into that, and I've never met Caleb Williams, but listening to the different interviews he's done, whether it be with the USC media, whether it be sitting down for podcasts, like, the guy, has one speed, and he is all go. And some of that came out very visibly after losses. And I truthfully have no problem with that. Like, I want you to wear your heart on your sleeve a little bit I want it to hurt when we lose football games if you're the leader of our team. I think, to me, I don't know if it was so much a thing where he came into the season and is like, all right, I gotta go beast mode. I think he probably had high standards for himself based on the things that he talked about preseason with the stats he wanted to accomplish. I do think, though, as the season wears on and you're looking at what happens on the defensive side of the football, like, you start to feel this pressure. I have to imagine being someone in his position where it's like, hey, if we're going to win this game, like we got to score 50. And so to have that pressure every time you walk out for a drive on offense to say this has to go for 6, that can, sometimes I guess the pressure can cause you to do positive things, but a lot of times feeling that kind of angst and that kind of pressure can force you to do too much and lead to negative situations. So I do think there's probably a level of that baked into the certain games you saw for USC where they lost. But yeah, I mean, obviously a generational talent. It's just unfortunate that was the situation he found himself in on a lot of different Saturdays.
No, I agree with 100% of everything you just said. And I know exactly what you're referring to, that after the loss to Washington, I think the realization happened, just dropped out of him. It's like, you know what, we're not going to the conference championship game. All those team goals we had set, they're gone. And once you get your mom touching you on the shoulder, I'm going to lose it too. So I get it. That weight on his shoulder just finally fell. No problem with that.
Yeah. And I think that the response to that was so intriguing to me from the public, because I mean, social media is toxic. We all can understand that, but you got people saying he's a crybaby, he's this, he's that. And I'm like, what do you want him to do? Like, I understand the thought of, hey, we want him to be a little more stoic, wait to get to the locker room, but it's like, he's still in college. Like he's still having this, pretty intense emotional response to something that he cares about a lot. Like I'd much rather see that from my quarterback than see them not care at all and withdraw and be apathetic. And I don't know that we ever saw that from him. I think it obviously hurt a lot. And, that's something he's going to have to learn to deal with as he gets into the NFL and mature in that category, I'm sure, with how he carries it. But overall, like I didn't have the same issue that I think maybe a lot of other folks did when they saw Caleb Williams break down after a brutal loss. And like you just said, realize a lot of their goals they wanted to accomplish were not going to happen.
Like you said, social media, really toxic. A lot of people can do whatever they want when they can hide behind some anonymity. So
yes,
I get it. Trust me, I really do. And one question here I want to ask before we segue into the next segment. Recruiting.
Yep.
California recruits. Is USC, is the staff, is Lincoln Riley, is he taking the California recruits for granted? Or is he just saying, you know what? I'm risking it. I'm going for the biscuit. I want the best guys out there. I don't care where they play.
That's a really good question. I think if I were Lincoln Riley, I'd probably lean towards the latter there, is what I would hope to do, because I think there's probably two schools of thought. One is like, you are the school within the state. If you lock down the state of California, you lock in the southern part of California, you're going to have a chance to be really good. And you've seen a lot of guys get out of the state and have great success, like a CJ Stroud and other players in that same, sphere. Bryce Young, obviously, who was committed to USC at one point in time, who wasn't committed to Lincoln Riley, I suppose. But the narrative holds true there.
Sure.
At the exact same time, the schools, this is how I think about it on the defensive side of the ball specifically. If you want to make the same meal as a Georgia, as an Alabama historically, as those big boys that run things in the trenches, like, you got to go shop at the same grocery store. And a lot of those ingredients reside in the southeastern part of the United States. So I think if you're USC, with the massive brand you have, getting back to the point I was making, if you have that brand, like, let's go exercise that. And again, not to use another bad word on the show, but like Oregon, they do a great job of this. In the state of Oregon, there's not a ton of talent, but they know, hey, this it carries some weight to it, much like that Trojan logo carries some weight to it. Let's go and take it out to the southeast, take it to Texas, take it to wherever, to go bring the very best to win at the highest level.
Yeah, we can discuss the definition of the O or the zero and what it all means. We'll do that on another show. Let me take care of some business here for a minute. Be right back. I'm sure a lot of you grew up spending some time at your favorite Major League Baseball park. Me, I was hanging out at Dodger Stadium. And that was way before all those corporate advertising things showed up on the walls out there where they hit home runs. But check this out. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front. That way, you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. And you can buy your tickets in seconds. 2 taps. Boom, you are done. Trojan fans, do you have your tickets yet for Las Vegas? It's going to be here in 71 more days. GameTime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. And with the GameTime guarantee, it means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use code LOCKE. D like David, O like Nan, and then N like Nancy for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, got all that tongue twister out of the way. All right, we're going to talk about recruiting again. We're going to just pick it up from where we left off.
Let's do it.
Now we're going to get a little bit more serious, though. These are hot button subjects for me. What are your thoughts on NIL, the transfer portal? I mean, in my opinion, the NFL Players Association could only dream of this type of free agency player movement. And I'll be honest, I'm ready to explore some different types of things to do here. I want to hear your opinion before I give you my suggestion.
I think the transfer portal is a good thing. I think NIL is a good thing. I think they are both tools, and like any tool, they can be abused. You can speed with a race car on a race car. You can speed with a car when you become 16 years old and get your license. It's probably not a wise thing to do, but it's a tool. People are going to abuse it and use it in a way that maybe it shouldn't be used for or isn't designed for. The thing that I would say about both the portal and NIL, we've already seen so much change in the very short period of time that both have existed.
Correct.
I don't think that we are at like the final product of where either of these things are going to be long-term in college football. Like my comp to this is I think we've had the transfer portal right around in the neighborhood of like 6 years, less than 10 years at the very least. And so when you look at like the way the iPhone has developed and evolved, like at 6 years of the iPhone, those things still had home buttons. And now if you find an iPhone with a home button, you're like, oh my gosh, where did you find this dinosaur? And so it's not a one-to-one comparison, but I think it does paint a pretty good picture of where we are right now. It's not the final resting place. It's not perfect. We're still working out the kinks, but I think the iPhone 15 version of the transfer portal and NIL will be a lot more of a better solution for all parties involved and for college football, I hope.
Well, I think that version hasn't even been released yet, and I think it's probably getting released next year when the universities can start paying the players directly. That might help circumvent the abuse of the transfer portal. So here's my solution. Since we're talking about young men, teenagers, wanting to become employees of the university, playing football there, no more verbal commitments, no more letter of intent days. You meet with your coach. You say, you know what, coach? I want you to be my boss. I want to work at this company that you coach at. Sign the contract right there. Get it over with. And
I don't hate that at all.
You don't have any more decommitments. You don't have USC coaches taking the gut punch, taking a knee, and having to send out messages on X saying, hey, we're going to fight with the Warriors, we have in our foxhole type of here. I don't know how you kind of take control of the situation, because right now the tail's really wagging the dog in college football.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think that's interesting. That's an interesting thought. I don't hate that at all. I wonder, too, how that would evolve, where it's like, hey, I'm going to sign for this coach in, let's say, to use this example, March. And then you fast forward the tape to, after the college football playoff, NFL jobs become available, other college jobs become available, and head coach X, Y, and Z, they all end up leaving. Do we stick with that same thought process where, okay, I had this document signed, that boss left, this is no longer legally binding, or what's the solution there in your mind, Mark?
Well, see, that's the thing. We're now asking young kids, young men, to play adult games.
Yeah.
Read the fine print on that contract.
Yeah.
Bring your advisor, bring your parent, whomever is putting their hand in your NIL pot. Get it figured out. But I come from the old school. You know what? Word is bond. A handshake matters. And I just feel the further we get into this process, and it's been happening for a long time, decommitment's been happening for years, it just feels like there's no consequences anymore. There's just, everything feels less genuine. In college football, it's about passion for me. And it's just becoming less passionate. You're losing the rivalry games. I mean, I can go down different rabbit holes all you want, but we don't have enough time there. So let me ask you this about recruiting. What are your thoughts on the star system? Because I'll be honest, I hate it. And probably for too many reasons to list. Bottom line for me, too much subjectivity. For example, you're a 3-star, but USC wants you, Alabama wants you, Oklahoma, Texas, I mean, if they're offering, you're probably a blue blood caliber player. How much does that star ranking really matter?
Sure. I think there's some truth to what you're saying there. I think the tough part too is now you have all these different services, and the way that, service X rates a certain player may be very different than the way that On Three rates a certain player. So you kind of take the weighted average where On Three might say this kid's a 5-star, service X might say this kid's a 3-star. Well, then it equals out to a 4-star, and then how does that all work out when it comes to what this kid's perceived as when it comes to college coaches? I do think that the team here at On Three does a really, really good job when it comes to deciding who's going to be a 5-star in those final 32 rankings. Look at the NFL draft too. Like Charles Power has knocked it out of the park when it comes to projecting that first round here in recent history. So I understand the people that are like, hey, I'm not a fan of the way this 5-star ranking works, and I don't necessarily agree all the time with the certain rankings and things like that. I will say I think Charles Power and Cody Belair, I mean, they watch more tape than anybody that I've ever met in my life, and I love football. They like inhale that stuff. So I guess my simple answer to that is I think that the team here at On Three crushes it, and I think that across the industry, these things evolve over the course of a cycle. Like we don't even have our final rankings until we get to that final, whatever that final ranking is. I'm forgetting the actual date of it, but we don't have our 32 5-stars until we have those 32 5-stars.
And again, I'm not talking about network specific here. I'm just talking in general terms, because I've been following recruiting for over 20 years. I get what it's all about, but again, I think there might be better ways to maybe forecasting success for a player, because what happens in the end, you put that 5-star label on somebody and they don't become that 5-star player. You see a lot of players with that bus tag hanging over their head, and it's I don't know, maybe USC is just bad evaluating their 5-stars, because they get a lot of them that end up going other places that didn't live up to that expectation.
Yeah, I think it is tough too, and this is not to speak ill of USC. I think there's two things too that go with that 5-star rating. Like, I don't know exactly how much you're able to factor in a kid's competitive makeup or his mental makeup or how he's going to do when he goes away from home for the first time. Like, everybody who's left home ever, you're like, okay, there's some learning curve here that I got to make sure I'm up to date with, and I'm able to execute to the nth degree to be successful. And same thing in college football. The other thing I would say too is I think there's a pretty heavy responsibility as well on the school to say, hey, we got this great piece of clay. Let's mold it. Let's put them in position to be successful. And so I don't think it's necessarily all the time on the school or on the player, but I do think the mix is very interesting when you look at guys that maybe do or don't pan out.
Understood. Absolutely. All right. And last question for this segment before we have a lot of fun to close out the show. Anyone, any place, anytime. It's kind of like how PicKell did things at USC. And look, I think people need to understand this. He inherited a roster very similar to the kind of roster that Lincoln Riley inherited. It had some talent, but it needed more talent. And look, I get times have changed, but I hate the path of least resistance. It goes against every fiber in my DNA. USC Ole Miss, that series got canceled. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I missed the last part of what you said there, Mark. I'm sorry. What about USC and Ole Miss?
The USC Ole Miss series got canceled. Can you hear me?
USC and Ole Miss, what got canceled? Oh, the series got canceled, you said.
Yes. What are your thoughts on that?
There's a part of me that is like, I understand it because of the 12-team playoff and because of the way that whole thing works. And I know there was a lot made too about Lincoln Riley. I'll speak more to the LSU situation because there was a lot of buzz around, hey, he wanted to cancel the LSU game and this, that, and the other. And I'm kind of like, well, if the goal is to make the college football playoff and the goal is to win national championships, yeah, if you're a player, you're not saying, hey, we don't want to play LSU. But if your job is to go hoist some hardware, like, yeah, it does benefit you in the long run to have a more clear path to a national championship as opposed to going back and forth with an Ole Miss or an LSU for the better part of however many quarters and you lose a game by 3 points, and that keeps you out of the college football playoff. So I think I would understand both sides, but I'm with you. As a player, you're like, hey, bring on the smoke. Like we'll play Bama, we'll play Georgia, we'll play LSU. Like we don't care, but I do understand the thought of from a macro level. Hey, if our goal here is results oriented and we have a chance to help that overall result when it comes time to play that final game, maybe you think about doing yourself some favors down the road.
Like I said, I bring it up because, USC didn't have a problem doing these types of schedules 20 years ago.
Sure.
They went out, they went into Auburn, they went into Arkansas, they went into Nebraska. They had the results they wanted. And you didn't have 12 spots available to win a national championship.
Sure.
So I'm thinking we're losing a little bit of college football when we take that path of least resistance. All right. That's it for the serious stuff. Be right back. All right. Let's just have some fun here for the next few minutes.
I love it.
All right. I need you in this order. Rank these 3 quarterbacks that played at USC. They all have one thing in common. Caleb Williams, Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart. And I'm not talking about pro. Obviously, Caleb hasn't done anything.
Sure.
Just for USC careers.
I'll go Caleb Williams, Matt Leinart, Carson Palmer. Matt Leinart, obviously, multiple-time Heisman finalist.
Okay.
Carson Palmer, obviously, Heisman Trophy winner, I believe. And then Caleb Williams won the Heisman. I just think just physical giftings.
Okay.
I would give the nod to Caleb Williams.
Yeah, the reason I asked you this question, I was asked this question on the We Are SC Inside the Trojan Huddle show, and I went Leinart, Palmer, Williams, just strictly for the accolades that they had achieved. Carson Palmer, Orange Bowl win, Heisman Trophy. Matt Leinart speaks for itself. Caleb, Heisman Trophy. Maybe he has one more year at USC. He's higher up on that echelon.
That's fair.
This is a viewer question. Name your top 5 USC players of all time.
Ooh, top 5 of all time. Golly. Number 1, I'm going to go Reggie Bush.
Sure.
Number 2, golly, because now I'm really racking my brain to think about some of the ballers from back in the day, man. Number 2,
with what you know,
I will go. Golly, this is super lofty, so I won't put him there. I was tempted to put Caleb Williams there because I think I see what you're saying where you go, okay, accolades wise, there's a few more awards or a few more things that Matt Leinart contributed to in Heritage Hall. So I would, in some ways, I'm thinking about flipping that. At 2, I will go with, let's go Ronnie Lott at 2.
Good choice.
Ronnie Lott at 2, absolute football guy through and through. At number 3, I'll go Caleb. At number 4, I'll go Leinart. At number 5, see, I'm torn here about where to go next.
Man, let me give you some. You got Junior Seau. I mean, there's so many names.
Got to be on there, probably, right?
Ray Ruga. I mean, you go back even further. You can't. There's no wrong answer. Is my point.
Golly, they're stacked. And I'm also like, where's Keyshawn Johnson? Where's Lynn Swan? Where's Willie McGinnis? Like,
we haven't touched on the running backs besides Reggie Bush. Marcus Allen.
I'll go Marcus Allen. That's my answer. I'll go Marcus Allen for number 5. He's probably like that list is probably one that I would tear apart if I were going back through it in some very loose order, subject to change. That's my 5.
USC is one of those programs that needs a bigger Mount Rushmore. I mean, that you just can't have 4 on their Mount Rushmore. It's impossible. All right. Now, I'm going to ask you what your spirit animal is. I was called a mule by Eric McKinney, which he's like, you know what? Mark's really stubborn, but once you get to know him, he's really soft and gentle when he's around you. I did my own People Magazine online personality score. I'm a wolf. What is your spirit animal?
What's my spirit animal? I love gorillas.
Okay.
I love that. I love that they are family oriented. I love that they are smart. If you go through my Instagram algorithm, I just got gorillas. I'm in a random monkey group chat where people just I don't have a lot of the numbers. They just send gorilla reels and short videos and meme they just send gorilla content in there. So I'll say gorillas for the main reason being that I just really like them.
That's all right, man. Wouldn't want to. You know what? If I'm in a foxhole and I need someone fighting with me, grill is probably a good thing to have. So
It's not bad. It's not
right?
bad.
All right. What's your favorite food? How much can you eat? What's the most you've ever tried?
I can get after it. So when I was in high school, I would go put away like, the 4x4s at In-N-Out, which essentially, pretty self-explanatory, 4 patties. I would put away 2 of those, French fries, and a strawberry milkshake. Like I could throw down now. I could throw down. So I think I love a good burger, man. I love a good burger. I probably, if I had to pay like a last meal, a good ribeye steak, like that
Okay.
would be, I think that would be right in the wheelhouse.
2 4x4s. You're getting into a high caloric intake right there. I mean,
Oh yeah, I'm packing it on. Like I can give me a few rounds. At In-N-Out, I can probably help y'all in the A gap a little bit.
just a few more questions here. We'll get you out of here. Mama's boy or dad's dude?
Oh man, see, I can't pick between the parents. I would say I probably resemble my mom a little bit more. But I
Okay.
mean, I will contest that I have the best parents on the face of the planet. But I would say I probably look more like my mom, and I've been
Okay.
told I act like my dad. So best of both worlds.
Outstanding. Now let's go back to your Al Bundy days playing high school football. What was your greatest moment wearing that Olu red?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Greatest moment. I think one of the moments I'm most proud of was when I was a true sophomore. I started fall camp.
Okay.
I think I was like 4th on the depth chart, maybe at quarterback. Like I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to learn the triple option and be effective in that regard. And we had 2 separate quarterbacks transfer out. So all of a sudden, real quick, JD goes from 4 to 2 on the depth. And so we get through the first week of the season. Going to the second week, our quarterback who's starting, he goes down against Damien High School. And
Okay.
so it's like, hey, JD, like you're the guy. Like we gotta, like this is a team that we probably should beat, but they're good. We're going on the road, and for us to win that game, I ran for a touchdown, and like that to me, that was one where I was like, hey, I stepped in where our team needed it. We took care of business. Like I think that's one that I would say I'm most proud of in a what's the right word? In an emotional sense.
Sure.
Being first team all league too as a running back was something I'm also pretty proud of.
Yeah, like I said, I went and did a little research on you. I'm surprised USC didn't give you a better look. Got to be honest.
I don't know, man. I don't know why they didn't want a guy who was flirting with like a 4.8 40 playing wide receiver running back. I don't know why they didn't come calling,
I believe Cornell called you a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, whoever wrote my bio did me a favor there, and I appreciate them for that.
And my last question, because you mentioned your parents, and I get this vibe from you. You actually remind me of a younger Yogi Roth. Always.
Oh yeah, okay. Love Yogi.
Always looking forward. I used to coach high school basketball. I did it for a year. Have you ever considered getting into coaching? I was kind of that Bobby Knight Jr. I never threw things at people, but it was my way or get out of here.
Sure.
Have you ever considered getting into coaching?
I have thought about it, especially when you just get out of football. You're like, man, I want to be around the game. I want to be around the locker room. I want to be around the team. I think for me, like I had just so many people in my life that one were really good coaches, enjoyed the heck out of it, but you hear stories about the work-life balance, not being able to have a family. And I had a high school football coach who was previously an offensive coordinator at Air Force and played with his son. He was phenomenal. And I mean, the whole family was phenomenal, but they did like, they were pretty transparent about like, hey, growing up, like dad was recruiting, mom was raising me. It worked great, but like, I didn't see dad a whole lot, which to me, it was like, okay, I think I'd like to be around a little bit more. So that was the reason why I leaned away from coaching. But the people that do, man, like salt to the earth. And yeah, probably all of them deserve a raise.
By far the most rewarding experience of my life. I wish we had more time. I could chop it up with you as long as we can go. I don't know how much time you have, but anyways, I want to have you on again. JD Paquel, the hard count on 3. Tell everybody when they can find you, when they can listen to you.
Oh, I appreciate it, Mark. Yeah, I mean, if you like podcasts, we're on podcasts. You type in the hard count with JD Paquel. It'll pop up. We appreciate you for that. And then we have a live show as well on the On 3 YouTube channel. That is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Just talking national college football, having a good time. So subscribe there so you don't miss a minute of it.
Absolutely. JD, once again, thanks for coming on the show. Reminder to everybody, Locked on USC. We do this 5 times a week, sometimes even more. You get special guests like this. So I'll be back next week with another 5 episodes. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.